keep saying boom of late. It says go on my screen, but I'm going to say boom again because I'm delighted to welcome the boomtastic Tony Robinson, OBE, to the Good Listening To show, Stories of Distinction and Clearing Showbiz site. So, Tony Robinson, the man with so many hats, literally, in what you do. And those of you watching the show will see that he's got an absolutely majestic thing upon his bonds as we speak. So Tony Robinson, OBE, you have a very, very famous namesake, but you're very, very famous as a namesake yourself too. Do you ever get confused for the Baldrick version of you?
Well, I sometimes wish I was him, but I don't think I'd have 25,000 followers on Twitter if they didn't think I was him. So, so it's pretty good, really, for me. No, but it's very disappointing to me. I did do once a show, an after dinner thing, and the people had actually come to it thinking I was, Baldrick Time Team superstar legend and a knight as well, and so it was hard work that after dinner talk, I'll tell you.
And you're the third guest I've had where there's a bit of happy confusion. There's a very, very famous BBC producer called Paul Jackson, and I interviewed someone called Paul Z Jackson, and Paul Z formed the Z because he kept getting the other Paul Jackson's paychecks, and he was quite envious because they were pretty humongous paychecks because this guy was like the comedy producer's comedy producer. So is Paul Z Jackson because he trained me with the comedy improvisation show and company that I'm part of that I still run called Instant Wit. And then the other one is John Altman, who's Michael Palin's best friend, but there's also an EastEnders John Altman, and they've gone as far as actually introducing each other on stage, and the audience doesn't know which one's going to come in. So John Altman, would you please welcome John Altman? And then everyone's going, Anyway, we've gone off on a rabbit hole tangent. I've got a bell for tangents.
We have imposter syndrome. That's true.
Yes. So, Tony Robinson, OBE, you're known as the Happipreneur. You've spent over 30 years improving micro biz in terms of how business owners that are perfectly formed and small are treated. You also very wittily said, I'll give you the joke about where you're dialing in from today. So where does Tony Robinson OBE live?
Sunny Barbados.
Boom. So, and we connected because you got in touch with me after I'd interviewed Charlie Mullins, OBE, who is the Pimlico plumber, now a phoenix rising again as We Fix London. And you had a really deep, long-standing connection with Charlie Mullins. Do you want to just tell us the story behind the story?
Yeah, absolutely. About 10, 12 years ago, we started something called an annual Microbiz Matters Day. In fact, I started it because I realized the power of LinkedIn, really, which is quite interesting. And I realized that I could contact people and ask them for favors and various things. And so we started to run an annual Microbiz Matters Day where I would interview something like 30 or 40 quite famous business owners during the day, online first of all, and then it eventually moved after about 8 years to big live events. We moved from a green room where the celebrities would come in and I'd interview them to actually a big live event. Anyway, Charlie was on the very first one. And he was such a hit that we actually did it in because everything was free. So there was, I had to beg, steal, and borrow. And Google actually gave us a room in their place, and he stopped the place, and everybody was looking at their computers and listening to Charlie because he's such a character. He's so good fun. We got on so well that 3 years later, he allowed us to do the whole thing with 250 people as guests and put on all the things at Pimlico Plumbers, and he's just great. In the end, we called him our Microbiz Matters Tsar because, there's all these tsars of different things. And we thought it was great to have someone like Charlie, it's common sense, but it ain't that common, that kind of, that kind of whole thing, which is great. And as you found out, he's just brilliant at, he's got his set lines, but if you grab his attention, he will he will answer a question properly,
Yes.
which is like so refreshing. It's not going to be politically correct,
Yes.
and he will answer a question, and so it's a
Yes.
dream to interview.
He gave the most brilliant advice. My son is 18, and the advice was for any young person getting going is to make sure you have a trade, and that's of course where he comes from turning a leaky tap into a complete sort of empire of the Pimlico plumbers, which obviously sold famously for 140 million in the end.
Yeah,
And
yeah, fantastic. And the other thing is that he also reinforces the advice that a lot of people give generic advice, but like when he was talking about his mentor Bill,
yes,
his mentor Bill, who gave that advice to him as well, was actually a plumber. Do you see what I mean? So it's not like some generic law of attraction type mentoring, manifestation or goal setting or kind of thing. It's actually practical advice to help him become a plumber and a trade and earn a living. It's fantastic.
And the tools of the trade for a successful life, actually.
Yeah.
Also, thank you so much. You said you'd seen my Rob Brydon show live.
Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah, it was fantastic. So I watched it live on Saturday evening because I only watched live TV kind of thing. So I didn't know anything about Rob Brydon, which is like I must be the only person in the world that didn't, because of my lack of television. But I thought he was absolutely brilliant, and I thought you were absolutely brilliant the way you actually set it all up. And I especially love the Michael Caine, Steve Coogan story as well. Oh, it's absolutely great, and it was a delight, and the audience loved it, didn't they? I mean, it was a really warm atmosphere. It's fantastic.
A fantastic moment for me too, because of there was a previous guest actually who said that we are, all of us, and this will help to anyone watching anyway, in the entrepreneurial space, all of us are where we are because of choices, actions, decisions that we made 5 years ago, almost to the day of Rob Brydon being in a sold out show. Obviously, due in no small part to Rob's brilliance, it sold out, but it was just a flag in the sand of progress that 5 years in, I have created a monster which works beautifully as a theatre show as well, which is so exciting.
And what I learned from you was also the fact that within 5 minutes, by using those photographs and you announcing yourself and the way you actually set it up, that audience was buzzing within 5 minutes before Rob Brydon had actually said a word, really. And it was just like brilliant. I loved it. I learned a lot from it as well. It's really good.
Thank you so much. Tony Robinson, OBE, is here for, we're going to be doing leadership reflections because you are just extraordinary in terms of your entrepreneurship support for all leaders in the world. You talked about Charlie Mullins' own excellence as a leader and things that he plays forward to pass on key messaging. You're also, if I may say, the Imelda Marcos of hats.
Yes, hundreds of them, unfortunately.
How many do you have?
Yeah, it is. I stopped counting when I got over 200, so I don't know how many there are really. I've got a cricket hat for every country that plays cricket. In their country, from World Cups and things like that. So, they add up, these number of hats.
And within the curated structure, there are 2 squirrels involved, which I'll explain in a minute. And it wouldn't surprise me if your own squirrels are, a hat. And then your goodly Mrs. Robinson is no doubt thinking, he's brought home another hat. But anyway,
yes, I have to go and look for them often because they get shoved into corners and cupboards and things like that. Yeah.
Excellent. So it's my great delight and pleasure. You are a professional speaker, an inspiration for your workplace and your world, is what you say about yourself on LinkedIn. You're also, as I mentioned, a very serial marathon runner. How many marathons have you done?
So in the last 12 years, I started when I was 60 odd, so 62 maybe, and I've done 18 half marathons and 5 marathons and just done the London Marathon, so that's good. All for Macmillan Cancer Support, so it's really to raise money for Macmillan. That's I'm not a runner by any means, so it's just a way of people. They'll give money to daft people.
Spend money without.
Yeah.
And
So,
if I may ask, just to question the story behind the story, Macmillan Cancer, we know obviously why you're using that as your cause, but is there any other personal connection to them as to why they've become your main charity?
yeah, I mean, 5 of my close friends have died of cancer between the ages of 26 and 57. So yeah, so that's the reason. And then there are lots of other people very close to me that are, unfortunately battling it. Yeah.
Yes. And I can't resist the motivational comedian part of me can't resist pointing out that if you're a runner, good on you. You don't live any longer, but you just get there a bit faster,
Oh,
apparently.
yeah. And that's absolutely true.
Or not. You could have really pushed back on that. No, that's nonsense. But anyway, thank you for not doing that.
No, it's true.
So, may I invite you to now be curated through the structure and the construct of the Good Listening To show. So, just to explain to those who are seeing this for the first time, if you are, where have you been? I've just had Rob Braden in the show. I've done 250 of these monkeys, but this is the show in which I invite movers, makers, shakers, mavericks, influencers, and also personal heroes into a clearing or serious happy place of my guests' choosing, as we all share their stories of distinction and genius. So it's my great delight to curate you, Tony Robinson, OBE, through this. First of all, then, any questions before we start?
No, not at all. Get going.
Let's do this. So energetically, it's all set in a clearing or serious happy place of your choosing. So where would you say Tony Robinson in sunny Scarbados? I can't even say it. Can you say it again? Because I didn't say it well.
Yes, it's sunny Scarbados. We've got a microclimate, and that's why it's sunny all year round. Yes.
Lovely. So what is a clearing or serious happy place for you, Tony?
Yes. Well, these are daily happy places, and there are 2 of them. So when I'm in Malta, which I've been in Malta an awful lot over the last 15, 20 years, it is in Independence Gardens in Slima. And I would go there every single day that I'm in Malta, and I'll be sat on a bench in Independence Gardens. I'll have lots of cats around me because there's like maybe about 400 cats live in Independence Gardens, and I'll be all my happy places have got food and drink associated with them. So I'll be eating a pastisi of something, tuna and spinach or something like that. And I'll be drinking either a coffee or a red wine or a beer. And I'll be looking across the water to St. Julian's Bay. There are trees in this happy place, and all my happy places have got water and sea, and it's just absolutely wonderful. And there's lots to observe, including, by the way, I'm on my own always in these happy places, so there's lots to observe, and especially cats mangling dogs, for example, that any dogs that are silly enough to go into Independence Gardens. And it's a wonderful place. And there's also our next novel is called Maltese Venom, and that's dedicated to Daphne Caruana Galizia, who was assassinated, and there's even a monument to her in Independence Garden. So that's a fantastic place. So wherever I'm in Malta, I go there. And in Scarbados, then it's similarly, it's next to the sea, it's at the front, it's at the South Bay, it's at the Teapot Cafe. And if you walk up the stairs from the Teapot Cafe, you'll find another little bench where I actually sit. And I have either a chocolate tiffin, a scones. They do scones specially for me. They're absolutely wonderful. A chocolate flapjack. So, lots of wonderful things I have with a coffee. And I'm there every day. And of course, some days I'll write, some days I'll just look around, some days I'll maybe chat to. There's lots of people that know I'm going to be sitting there, so lots of people come up and have a little chat, which is a wonderful thing, really. I've got a friend who calls it like light chats, about nothing in particular kind of thing, but they make, we're social people, aren't they? It's lovely when somebody comes up and says hello, Tony, and have a chat about nothing in particular. So it's just like, that's great. Those are my 2 happy places.
May I just congratulate you? That's probably the most sumptuous nom 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 descriptive experience I've experienced. And what's lovely is you are the cat in the hat at both settings. So there's something beautifully Dr. Seussy about the cat in the hat, who's all that sitting there.
Lovely, lovely. And of course, I get withdrawal symptoms if I'm not next to the sea every day. You know, I just have to be next to the sea. I just love it. Like, I suppose, like Melville wrote really well about that, didn't he? About the fact that people can just look out at the sea for, and for no particular reason. But if you're feeling great doing that, then hey, that's great.
Beautifully positioned. And I'm obviously going to go for the Independence Garden because I think you are a really independent maverick. And so what I love is the fact that you've got, I love both benches, but if I may, can I choose to arrive with my Waiting for Godot-esque Samuel Becketty tree in your next to your bench, next to all the cats, with you being the cat in the hat in Independence?
Oh, lovely. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, let's do that.
So a tree now arrives because of my hecting background, and it is, as I mentioned, a bit Becketty, deliberately existential. So the idea is go where you like, how you like, as deep as you like, as silly as you like, as epic as you like, into this construct. You've had 5 minutes, Tony Robinson, OBE, as long as you've needed before we've agreed to do this, and this was a couple of months now in this sort of inception, to have thought about 4 things that have shaped you, 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that never fail to grab your attention. And I mentioned squirrels earlier on. That's borrowed from the film Up, where the dog goes, "Bolt, squirrels." You know, what are your monsters of distraction, your squirrels? And then the one is a quirky or unusual fact about you, Tony Robinson, OBE, we couldn't possibly know about you until you tell us. So it's not a memory test. I'll curate you through it, but let's go back to the top of the tree. 4 things that have shaped you first.
Yeah, I thought a bit about this because I think it's really interesting. Because I mean, it's really interesting to talk about things like this because normally I'm just talking about micro businesses and enterprise and startups and various things. So it's absolutely great to do this. And I thought, well, I'll go backwards in. I'll go to nearest 4 things. So the first one is 15 years ago, and that links with the Malta kind of thing, because I persuaded my business partner Claire of well, now 40 years we've been in business together, my wife Eileen and 3 kids, that I'd like to go to Malta for 1 year on my own, a sabbatical. And I wanted to get serious about my writing in that year, because I've always been tacking on my writing into other things, and I really wanted to get serious about it and do it. And so they said, "Yeah, bugger off." I mean, off you go. I mean, they said, "What a wonderful idea! It's best idea you've ever had." Yeah, so like that. So I ended up there earlier than I expected. But no,
I wasn't going to go till next year, but
yeah, exactly. But anyway, in that year, really led to the last 15 years of me as a well, because I came back and I resigned, and this is the important thing, I think, in the shaping. I resigned from every single thing that wasn't giving me fulfillment, or didn't feel useful, or wasn't making me happy, including 3 organizations that I'd founded. And that takes a little bit of doing, if you like. I'd obviously done my writing, and so I was really pleased with that, and I was pleased that I'd achieved that goal during the time, and I really have got serious, and I've continued that. But I also decided that a guy called Joss Burton wrote a beautiful book called Be Useful, and I've always felt really lucky. I'm very much of the memento mori kind of feeling about things, and I've always felt like really lucky that I'm still here and I'm still alive, and I live for today. Imagine all the people living for today, kind of thing. I do live for today. I've got no memory. unlike Rob Brydon, I haven't got any regrets. You know, I just haven't, probably because I haven't got any memories. but the two things probably go. But seriously, I was then able to say, well, what would be useful, kind of thing, and then at the end of it, like today, I'm running the Be More Happipreneur shows and doing all those things, and I made sure that I was able to do things that made me feel be useful, like Joss Burton's book. And I've done that for 15 years or something. And that's all down to that 1 year in Malta. So that's completely shaped me.
And now,
It shaped me. Yeah.
is that where the Happipreneur was born?
Yeah, it came about 2019. So it came about 6 years later. But what I had done is, like, I'd also improved my observational skills and listening, I think, during this. I've always been trying to do it because my wife and business partner Claire have always said I should improve my listening skills, and I think my observational skills improved a great deal being on my own and just walking around the island all the time and then writing at night. And I suddenly decided that I realized that a lot of entrepreneurs, and I've met some really famous ones and millionaires and various things, and some of them being clients, so I've got to know them really well. And there's an awful lot of really wealthy people that are entrepreneurs that are as miserable as anything. And one of them became quite a close friend. I was one of the few people that invited me to his ranch with an Olympic-sized swimming pool and all this kind of thing. And he died young as well. And I always thought it was really bad. Why are some people like me running my own business that, are earning a lot of money, happy? And I elevated myself to the point of happypreneurship, which is you've got to be happy in your enterprising life at least 80% of the time.
What a lovely.
Yes, so you've got so basically, I'd got myself up there from about 65% to 80% by what I was doing in the last 15 years. But I wanted to find out why we were really happy and other people weren't, and it came down to a number of things, and that's why we wrote the book as a guide. And the important thing about it, and just to go back to business for once, the point is about if you meet the values of happypreneurship philosophy that we've written and the influencing and how you're influenced and the enterprise skills, then 80% of startups will survive 3 years or more. Now, in Silicon Valley, only 10% of startups survive 3 years or more. And there are some very controversial values, as you can imagine, in those 10, such as things like avoid debt. Now, the whole world is actually selling entrepreneurs' debt, if you actually think of it.
Yes.
But the ones that are happiest are the people like Charlie Mullins that won't even allow a bank manager on his premises. That's how strongly,
Yes.
he feels about the fact that he nearly lost his life and his business because of banks,
Yes.
recalling overdrafts and things like that. So anyway, long story short, but that's how happypreneurship came about, and the book is actually a guide to enterprise, really, but along the way it will help you survive and thrive and do what you love doing and are good at, which is great.
That's a wonderfully helpful calibration. Anyone listening is already processing, how happy am I out of that 80% equation? And also you're championing the little business. That's what your pay in 30 is about, isn't it? That's a really important thing. We must.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the other thing. So for example, I've been campaigning that for obviously such a long time. But the reason is that micro business owners and self-employed people like us, we have to pay for things. Either the longest is going to be utilities and things like that monthly, but we pay most of our suppliers straight away, don't we?
Definitely, yes.
I mean, it's an unwritten code. We've got to meet with each other. We've got to, and so we're paying out money straight away. So these 100 large corporations on the FTSE 100 and various things that have standard 45 to 120 days payment terms, they are actually causing a 30 billion logjam in the UK, which means that when you deal with a company of any size, they may actually be in a supply chain from one of these 45 to 120 day standard terms, and they can't pay you within a reasonable time frame. And this causes so many problems. And basically, I mean, for example, in COVID, you can imagine I was livid that the one thing that government didn't do during COVID is say that everybody has got to pay in 30 days or less, or else we're not giving you the furlough money. We're not bailing you out. We're not giving you grants. Everybody has got to pay in 30 days or less because we've got to pay our bills.
And so many small businesses completely lost out in any case. I mean, not
absolutely,
but
3.8 million lost out, excluded UK.
And the 30 billion, as you described, logjam, being you can imagine that's why businesses do it, because they'll get fat off the interest, basically. But that's
it's the easiest way to make money.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I was managing director of a company whereby it was paid in cash because it was retail consumers. See, supermarkets are terrible. The big five supermarkets are terrible. So they get paid in cash. They get all that money coming in straight away, and they don't have to pay for the goods that they've sold.
Yes.
They sell those goods 3 times over. And of course, the fastest way to make money is on the money market. And I was in one of those companies that was actually wanting to do it. So the accountants want to put out the number of days that you can actually not pay for the goods as long as they can.
So the campaign, of course, then coming full circle, is pay in 30, which is just this idea of, come on,
pay in 30 days or less. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So again, not to get too political, but back to the shaking of the tree now. So
So second one is 40 years ago. So that's totally shaped me, really. And that was a decision that's when my riches to rags story started, because I'd become a managing director of a 200 employee. I had all the big things. We had a lovely house on the edge of a village. I had a massive car. Not that I should ever been given a driving license because of my dyspraxia, but we had all the trappings. We're traveling first class. We were actually at a conference in Venice when I said to my wife, who didn't like coming to these events anyway, she doesn't like that kind of stuff, but she had to because I was managing director of it. I said to her, I'm going to resign as this lifestyle, and that was the start of 4 times downsizing and all sorts of things, as you know what it's like with when you start off self-employed and various things. So, but that was the I've had the most wonderful, with my business partner Claire. I've had the most wonderful 40 odd years. And
what's Claire's second name? Sorry to interrupt you.
She's got a famous name, which is Claire Francis, but I'm not allowed to talk about her or my family too much because none of them like it. But she's one of my heroes, and So basically, that was the start of being totally independent, and more importantly, I think, this is a bit philosophical, being able to totally stand against my values. So I can put my hand on my heart and say that as far as I know, I've been able to work to those values for 40 years since, and I don't know that you can in an employed position. And I'm not criticizing employment. In fact, I think most people, nobody should ever start up their own business without having some other income streams. And that, it's better to test trade while you've got a job, and even get a job while you're actually running your own business, if that's another way of getting income in. So I've got absolutely nothing wrong with it. And all my talks are to big companies, and all my clients have been big companies. So I've got nothing against employment, but I'm just saying on a personal level, it's liberating. It's a bit like Nina Simone once said, what is freedom? She said, no fear. And I think that is the liberating thing. There's no fear about losing your job because it's your own business kind of thing.
Yes, and I love the fact that in the epicenter of the clearing is your flag, flapping majestic with the Happipreneur, flappity, 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 flappity. I love that. Beautiful.
Right, and the third one was is 1985. So was the last one, and the next one's 1970-71, and so my father died, and and I was in my A-level year, and I'd been very conscientious and I'd been a good academic, etc. I'd been to the Isle of Wight Festival for 7 days in 1970, 600,000 people there without a screen or a mobile phone and one stage. It's incredible, really, when you think about it. But I was with a whole group of people that were all creatives, and I think of myself as a creative rather than, I certainly don't think of myself as anything to do with business. But my father died, and I had a kind of big decision to make, really. My instincts were actually taking me towards helping my mother with the family business. That's what my instincts were taking to me. The selfishness, hippie part of me said that I just want to get out of this all, and I want to be with creative people all the time. And many of my friends had actually left school before A levels and were in bands or were actors like Christian Burgess, and so lots of people. But I thought, well, I've also probably got to make some money for my mother and things like that if I do it. So anyway, I decided to go to London to do a degree, to be with my creative friends. Obviously, a lot of them, in order to earn a living in the arts, had to go to London. And the course was rubbish, but English and philosophy. But my first philosophy teacher actually became chief rabbi, and he was a guy called Lord Jonathan Sacks, and I got really interested in philosophy.
Yes.
As a result of his teaching. He was only 2 years older than me, so he was doing his PhD. It was his only teaching job that he ever had. I was so lucky, and I got really into philosophy. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and so that has shaped me. There is nothing more that has shaped me in my life than that philosophy kind of thing. And then the last one, very quickly, and I think I have a hat for this one. Yeah, so it's school days. I mean, I hate Freud and all this that, but this is my proudest possession as well, which wasn't one of your questions. But this is an East Riding Schools cricket hat, and I had to work bloody hard to get an East Riding Schools cricket hat, and I'm really proud of that. And
thank you so much, Donnie. That was beautiful.
But basically, I had polio when I was 8 or so, and that has completely shaped me, because I spent 15 months bedridden in between going to hospital visits and various things. Had to learn how to walk again, all that kind of stuff. But the wonderful, and my whole life has been incredibly lucky, and I'm not just saying that, it has been incredibly lucky, was the fact that my mum, who giggled her way through life and her business, and Dad's business, but was the most brilliant teacher. So there's me thinking of going back to school, thinking, oh, I don't really want to go back, when I'd recovered and learned to walk again, all that kind of stuff. I don't really want to go or whatever. And I found that, I was way ahead of them.
And
So I was way ahead of them in the class, if you like. And that always, I was an only child. And so I had no reference points, kind of thing. And I thought, this is absolutely great. This is what life is all about, being top of the class and various things. And then, I slimmed off a bit. By the time I went to grammar school, I played every sport that there was. I just loved it, and I wanted to be the best at every sport as well, tennis, cricket, whatever. So it was like the most fantastic thing to suddenly realize that, God, your mum's actually made you like really good at all these things.
Description of your mother was just beautiful. The fact she giggled her way through life.
Oh, yeah, she did. Yeah. The house was always full of her friends, and people coming around, and they just giggled all the time. And Christmases were, better than Charles Dickens would have wanted them. Even they were absolutely wonderful.
Gorgeous, love that. So is that the 4 shapeages?
That's 4 shapeages, yeah.
Positioned with dates akimbo.
Yeah, that gets you right back to it. Yeah.
And I forgot to mention how fantastic it was that your family said by then, when you said in the first shapeage that it was time for a sabbatical year.
Yeah.
So did you literally step away from your family for the entire year?
Yeah. My Eileen, my wife and daughter, came over in the last 2 weeks, I think.
Wow.
So and we flew back together.
Lovely. Great story. So now 3 things in the shape of the tree, 3 things that inspire you.
Right. Okay.
OBE.
All right. So, I think the first thing is, which is talked about, so I'm very quick, is partnerships. As you mentioned, I speak on my next talk and my last talk as conferences is about inspiration, how you get it, and what it does for you. And a lot of people say things are inspiring in the same way as they think are awesome.
Yes.
But it's actually closer to its sibling motivation. It's about something that really gets to you. And it could be an idea, or it could be an impetus, or whatever, that motivates you, but motivates you into a willing action, if that makes sense. And it's the action that is actually important from the inspiration. So if somebody goes to see you and Rob Brydon and they'll say that was inspiring, well, it was, but it's not really doing anything unless that inspiration is actually taking them to do something, which might be to actually try stand-up comedy. Do you know what I mean?
Completely.
So my first one is partnerships. So I've been very lucky in having women partners and a life partner for 50 odd years as well, that we're actually so close together that they do actually inspire me on a day-to-day basis. Because when you get really close to people in a partnership, work and life, you actually can just observe them, or they have a little smile on their face when or you can see them actually taking a deep breath to go through a really difficult thing. Or do you know what I mean? And the whole personality of the person is actually inspiring you to say, well, yeah, I need some of that. do you know? So that's fantastic. So that was the first one. The second one was for writing, performing, and so forth. And I actually wrote a funny book, hopefully, which is 2020 Visionaries, Dead Celebrity Interviews.
I have that in my head too.
And obviously, I like writing satire more than anything else, really. Yeah. And so that was a great opportunity to research a lot of people. And quite a lot of those are actually inspirations for me. So although most of them are actually funny and satirical and various things, people like Anne Bronte and Virginia Woolf and these people, I can't say people like Mandela, because there's nothing in my context. I found it absolutely fantastic going to see Mandela on Robben's Island and stuff like that in the museum. But you can read a writer such as Virginia Woolf, Anne Bronte, Noel Coward, even on his plays, and I didn't realize what a good writer he was until I started reading and research. Do you know what I mean? You can actually read these writers and actually go, and then the performing. Well, you know, I won't go into, there's such a long list of performers that I've learnt things from. As Rob Brydon says, you suddenly realise in retrospect that you've taken a bit from that, a bit from that, but you've actually been inspired by their performance to take that action, even if it's subliminally, into your performance.
Yes,
That's
and
absolutely fantastic.
that speaks to me so profoundly, because Stan Laurel is my complete comedy hero, and then in modern times, Michael Palin sort of does it for me in a similar way too.
Great, yeah, absolutely. So that's
you mention your book more overtly. It's obviously 2020 Visionaries: Dead Celebrity Interviews, which you've co-written with Tara Johnson. So
very kind, yes.
You're welcome. There is a good theory strand as well.
and the last one was, I don't know, I had a note somewhere. Oh yes, it's for the work that I do. Yes, I must mention. I'll mention her again later on. But I do say in every talk I do and every interview like this that my inspiration is a fantastic woman called Kanya King, CBE. And so this is the inspiration for the work I do.
Yeah.
So she founded the MOBO Awards in the same year that I founded something called the Small Firms Enterprise Development Initiative, which is one of the organizations I resigned from. But I did mine to actually improve life for startups and micro business owners. And Kanya did hers to actually shake up the music industry completely, to recognize music of a Black origin and its importance. Now, she has done that. I have not done that, but I've tried throughout all this time, and I have learned from, so we talked earlier about Microbiz Matters Day and various things. Well, that's how Kanye started off. So I've been running annual award shows and everything from 1996 and Microbiz Matters Days and all sorts of things, and begging and stealing celebrity people that people will actually want to watch, if you like. She managed to persuade Lionel Richie to the very first MOBO Awards.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was him she was
and it was Lionel Richie that actually managed to get, obviously, even the Prime Minister, Tony Blair at the time, went to the very first, I mean, this is incredible.
Yeah.
So she didn't have any money. She mortgaged her house and various things. And the other thing is, like, her background is like, I lived in Kilburn for a while. I know what that was like in Kilburn. And, she tells a story about, no blacks, no dogs, no Irish kind of thing that they had on the pubs and various things. Well, she had all of, the racism that was going on still and various things. So it's amazing what she's actually achieved. And she's just absolutely fine. But the point is, she inspired me to learn to find a way to do these things without any money at all, just based on passion,
the philosophy,
passion to make a difference, to do something useful, and be willing to ask your friends and people that you've met, and would you help us out on this? And it's amazing how wonderful people are. So.
A beautiful inspiration. Thank you. I think that's 3 inspirations now. Is that right? If I've got the maths right.
Yeah, that's done.
And now this is the exciting bit. This is the squirrels, the 2 monsters of distraction. What are your 2 squirrels, which may be hats, and I'd be delighted if they were, but I don't mind if they're not. What, Tony Robinson, would you say are your 2 monsters of distraction? Your squirrels that never fail to stop you in your tracks, irrespective of anything else that's going on.
Well, what was the other thing in the film up that the dogs were distracted by?
Oh, now you're asking. It was squirrels, and do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, it's my first one. It's balls. That's not a comment. It's that's so I am distracted by balls of all kinds. So snooker balls, even cricket balls, tennis balls, footballs, whatever. As a fan, playing a table tennis, I've played that as well. I love it, watching it. Obviously, I don't play as many of them now, but all balls all the time. So I will always go, if everyone wants, it doesn't matter what the crisis is going on in the world, if somebody invites me to either watch some balls being kicked or whatever, it's one of the reasons I only watch live television, because I can only watch live sports with balls kind of thing. And
Yes.
I love them all.
And
It's absolutely
paddle.
great.
What about paddle and pickleball, the new types of balls?
Oh yeah, I love all that. Absolutely great. So anything to do with ball, just love it. And what's the second one? Oh, cats and dogs. We mentioned cats. I could look at them for hours. Absolutely fantastic. We've got a dyspraxic cat, and it takes after me. Great. Sometimes sleeps on me and various things, but it does Cirque du Soleil in the middle of the night kind of thing. But it just, it wakes you up at 3 o'clock in the morning because it got up on some wardrobe or something and doesn't know how to get down. And I mean, just has got no cat-like things. I can just watch cats and dogs forever. So those are the two things that.
And remembering you are the cat in the hat yourself, so that is fantastic and makes complete sense. Also, what's so relatable is dogs are so brilliant in terms of presence, of being in the clock of now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
so that's wonderful.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
And I was analogized when I first went to drama school as being like an untrained Labrador. I'll lick your face, hump your leg, get bored, do a shit in the corner, go do something else. I won't do any of that, but I never humped anyone's leg, I have to say. Although actually I did play General Custer's dog at one point in a play.
Brilliant.
That was me going down my own rabbit hole.
Great.
Rabbit hole number 4, please. And now we're on to a quirky, this is the one, a quirky or unusual fact about you, Tony Robinson, we couldn't possibly know about you until you tell us.
Yeah, I mean, the lowest 2% of the population for spatial awareness.
So dyspraxia again, yes.
Yeah, so, but I mean, it wasn't, I mean, they didn't have a term for it then, but so I was on a postgraduate diploma in human resource management, and we were doing occupational psychology tests, and various testing for things like forklift truck drivers and things like that. And they proved that with this test that I should never have been given a driving license because
home with Tony is what
yeah, absolutely. And I've been arrested a number of times for trying to get out of hotels and with not paying, only because I can't find the main, the main down. I've gone through the fire exit looking incredibly shady, and I've been stopped by these people.
Always find you. He's the one in the hat. Go get it. So the stat again was you're in the lowest 2% of spatial awareness of the human population. Is that right?
Yeah, well, apparently, according to this test back in 1978,
in the top 98%, if you invert the math. I love that. I'd love to come and stay in a very swanky hotel with you, and we can both do a runner and blame you.
Yeah, exactly.
We have shaken your tree, Tony Robinson.
You can.
Hurrah!
A great thing about dyspraxia is I was really popular with my kids and their mates, because if they ever went in the car with me, obviously they got lost. But the other thing is that I lived in Milton Keynes for when they were very, very young, and it meant that it's full of roundabouts, and of course I was driving round and round and round and roundabouts, never being able to get off, and the kids were like really disappointed with their boring old parents, like going straight off a roundabout after that, because they loved going round and round and roundabout.
So this is the Happipreneur, like your mum, probably giggling your way through the roundabout. Have you visited Hemel Hempstead in your dyspraxic way? Because that's got the loony roundabout of 6 mini roundabouts and then a roundabout.
We lived there for a couple of years as well. Yeah.
So that must have been absolutely gleeful with you on.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's awful. I've been down roads. We won't do that. Carry on.
We have shaken your tree. Hooray! So now we stay in the clearing, move away from the tree. Next, we talk about alchemy and gold. So when you're at purpose and in flow, Tony Robinson, OBE, what are you absolutely happiest doing and what you're here to reveal to the world?
Well, I'm the oracle of Happipreneur now, which is the one, it takes all these years to get up there. You've probably got to be in your 70s, etc. But I'm twinned with Slambovia in Sleepy Hollow, New York, and that's where my favorite band come from. Slambovian Circus of Dreams, they're called. And Josiah Longo puts it best, if you like, and I realized that was when I'm in the flow, when it's absolutely best. And he talks about every now and again a song almost coming down fully formed from the ghosts and all the various things of Slambovia, like the ghosts of Happipreneur. And that is the most incredible moments for me, when suddenly writing is not hard. Most of the time it's really hard work writing, isn't it? Even comedy must be hard work, writing it and rehearsing it and getting it right and various things. But there are some times when it just seems to flow, and you can even laugh and smile as you're writing. Does that make sense? So
Completely does.
that's mine.
When you find your muse, do you have a favorite track of that ilk that you'd like to prescribe? Because Dan, my podcast editor, is brilliant at texturing in a piece of music.
Oh gosh, that's incredible, isn't it? Yeah, it's really difficult to get. So, a lot of my favorite tracks would not be appropriate for that, but something that is not, it's really corny, would be something like The Summer Wind by Frank Sinatra as background music, just for the kind of feel of it while you're actually writing, and obviously the arrangements with the Count Basie Orchestra and Nelson Riddle and all those kind of thing. The bands behind Sinatra were probably the best musicians in the world at that time. So I'd go for that. I'd go for something I don't think I've got but that would be something that I would put as a background to this time when you suddenly get The Summer Wind by Frank Sinatra.
Yes. There's a famous story of an American poetess whose name has not come to my mind as I tried to remember this, but she was famous for when the muse of a poem comes, it's like a tornado that's coming to her in a cornfield, and she's got to dash back to her desk, get a pen before it blows past, and then it comes blowing into the page.
And you never know when it's going to happen as well. And that's one of the reasons, going right back to the happy places, where I have always got a notebook and a pen with me, because I can just be looking over across the sea and then my thoughts will go here, there and everywhere. And suddenly the start won't be a completed poem, but it will be the start of a poem or a song I'm writing or something will actually come in. And it's just and you don't know how the heck it's happened. It's wonderful.
The muse, and it's come from the gods. Marvelous. One of your celebrity interviews is with Zeus, and with that was the god you were talking about.
Yes.
So that's the Alchemy in Gold. And now I'm going to award you with a cake. So do you like cake? Here it is, dog toy that looks a bit like a carrot cake. But what's your favorite cake, please, Tony?
Yeah, so it's chocolate, and it was like my Auntie Mary made. And my Auntie Mary, right up to about the age of 30, whenever I went to Hull, which was where my mother lived, various things, I'd stop on the way back before I got on the motorway at my Auntie Mary's, and I'd get this chocolate cake. And she couldn't bake. She was hopeless at baking. And so she was a real fan of doing these chocolate cakes for me because I loved them. And they were sort of like really hard. They weren't fluffy or anything like that. Really hard, whatever. And then because I'm greedy, I'd probably put some chocolate-covered cinder toffee on top of it.
Oh, nom, 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 nom. Love that. So now you get to put a cherry on your cake with stuff like, what's a favorite inspirational quote? You've given us a couple already, but what's your favorite inspirational quote that's always
I've got no memory, but Rob Brydon mentioned Anthony Hopkins coming from the same place, Port Talbot, was it? I can't remember. But anyway, so that jogged me into this one, which I really like, which is that none of us ever get out of this alive. So be silly, be kind, be weird. There's no time for anything else.
Love that.
I love that. And that fits my whole Stoic philosophy kind of thing as well.
Love that.
I love the way you do that. It's great.
Here all week, you're welcome. So now, with the gift of hindsight, next question: what notes, help, or advice, Tony Robinson, OBE, might you proffer to a younger version of yourself?
Yeah. So when we started our business, we very wisely took on board for a year that we'd help this other person with their business, they'd help us with our business for a year, 1 year kind of deal of helping each other. And they'd been running their business for about 15, 18 years, so they knew a lot more. And that's one of the important things for a startup, is ask a business owner that's been running a business like yours for advice. And the advice they gave to me is the one I'd give to somebody else, a younger self, is never have to cross the street to avoid somebody. And that was the advice that they said. I live in this area, I play in this area, I work in this area, and I never want to have to cross the street to avoid somebody. So that would be my advice.
And if I may say, what's so delicious about that and so appropriate in your case is the fact that whenever you sit in your 2 benches, whether that's Scarborough or in Independence Gardens, people seek you out, as do the cats, to come and sit and talk to the cool cat in the hat. So love that. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? Obviously, in the construct of that is by somebody else. So what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Well, I would say that. I mean, it's a two-way thing, isn't it? But, it buys us back some time as well. but I would say that as well. I think that's one of the best bits of advice I've ever had.
And thank you. I've just realised
by the way, it's hard to do. Does that make sense? I mean, it's very easy to not do the dirty on somebody, but actually not be kind. There's a brilliant charity that I met when I was speaking up in South Shields at the Custom House Theatre a few weeks ago, and somebody's created a red bench, and the charity is about, like, they're putting these red benches all across in South Shields and lots of different places, and the idea is if you see somebody sitting alone on the red bench, that you actually go and sit next to them and ask them if they're okay, because a lot of suicides are just prevented by people actually talking to people and not avoiding people. Does that make sense? So it's not an easy thing to do, is never have to cross the street to avoid someone.
And does that go as far as the red benches? You need to sit there if you're feeling triggered, or do you get people? It doesn't.
Well, the idea is that looking across a nice view, like we've said with our happy places, etc. So they're all positioned in very nice views. But the person who set them up, who tried to commit suicide a number of times, that was it started with his favorite bench, if you like, and then he created it into a charity to help others. So yes, the idea is most people that sit on the bench are but in another way, you could go and sit on that bench, and then somebody else who's probably not feeling great might sit alongside you, and then you've got to say hello and talk to them and things. That's a good thing.
Duality of that. Fantastic. We're ramping up shortly to talk about Shakespeare and to borrow from the 7 Ages of Man speech to talk about legacy. But just before we get there, this is the pass the golden baton moment, please. A bit like They Don't Like It That by Mr. Menring with the golden baton. But who would you most like to pass the golden baton along to now that you've experienced this from within, in order to keep the golden thread of the storytelling going, Tony Roberts?
Yeah, well, there's 3 really. So but the last one is the ones that I think that may keep the thread going. So for work, it would be Jen Crowther, who's my favorite entrepreneur, and I'm chair of something called Yorkshire in Business, which you won't be surprised to know helps startups all along the Yorkshire coast, and we've even got cafes which we have sellers in, actually test trading, selling their crafts and their goods and all the various things like that. And all the money we make from our workspace and all our entrepreneurial ventures, because we have quite a few, goes into providing free startup support to everybody along the Yorkshire coast. And it's a long coast, is the Yorkshire coast. On writing, it would be who we've mentioned. It would be my co-writer, who is also Independent Publisher of the Year, Taryn Lee Johnston. She's got a wonderful story as well. Absolutely fantastic. So I mentioned her. In life, it would be the remarkable Jennifer Griffiths, because Jennifer Griffiths is housebound for various reasons, had illness. She has saved thousands of lives, Chris, among the 3.8 million excluded UK. Unfortunately, we've lost 40, and the last 3 because of bounce back loans, of not being able to repay their bounce back loans. And this woman is absolutely amazing. Wonderful story, absolutely fantastic, but she's an absolute hero, and she literally has saved thousands. And all of those of us that have campaigned for excluded UK have been cancelled and vilified, and you wouldn't believe the stuff that they had. And she's ridden above it, kept smiling, kept giggling like my mum, and literally held thousands of lives. And the one I mentioned at the beginning, who I think would be absolutely wonderful on your show, of course, is Kanya King, CBE, because I believe this format, I don't know if the listeners will agree, if there's a comment thing, tell me if I'm right, but I actually think this format would draw Kanya King to tell her story in a totally different way than has ever been told before, and she is my inspiration.
Thank you so much you've actually given me 4. That's the most generous golden baton pass I've ever experienced. Thank you so much. Those are precious indeed. Thank you so much. And now, inspired by Shakespeare, all the world's a stage and all the bedded women merely players. This is the actual complete works of Shakespeare, not a first folio, but I bought this for myself when I went to the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. It says in the margin there, 16986 when I went to the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School. So inspired by the Jaques or Jacques speech within As You Like It, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. Tony Robinson, we're going to talk about legacy now. How, when all is said and done, and here comes your favourite sound effect again, would you most like to be remembered?
Oh, I'll do it again. Go on.
Oh, go on then.
I love it. I'll have to put this hat on for that. So yeah. So basically, yeah, this is my running hat. So it's got the 5 names of the friends I run from around it. So it's a good way as we're getting near the end. But basically, yeah. So it would be for singing "Got My Mojo Working."
Love that.
How would I like to be remembered?
Yes.
I would like to be remembered for singing "Got My Mojo Working."
Love that. And who's that by, or that just using?
Muddy Waters.
Muddy
Waters, but it's better by me.
Would you like to sing a refrain of it now?
Yeah, well, if you do a bit of this, yeah. So, went down to Louisiana, gonna get me the mojo hand. I went down to Louisiana, gonna get me the mojo hand. I'm gonna tell all you women, Tony's the fastest in the land. Got my mojo working. You've got to go, got my mojo working.
Got my mojo.
So when I go, got my mojo working,
yeah,
you've got to go, got my mojo working. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
All right, so, yep. All right, ready? Got my mojo working.
Got my mojo working.
Got my mojo working.
Got my mojo working.
Got my working.
Got my working.
Got my mojo working, but it just don't work on you. Here we go.
Thank you so much for doing that, and forgive my ignorance in not knowing that I was part of that.
I only made you part of the act at the last minute, didn't I? You did very well.
And in my world of comedy improvisation, yes and happy to participate. That was wonderful. So now we're going to do a very exciting section, which is called Show Us Your QR Code, please. So Courtney, if you'd be kind enough to show the QR codes. First of all, it's your website, the Tony Robinson. Here it is, the Tony Robinson OBE website. So let's have a look. It's Be More Happipreneur through this. So here we go. Could you, for those of us that are just watching, you can scan the QR code, but just tell us what the URL is for those that are listening.
Yes, so it's TonyRobinsonOBE.com. TonyRobinsonOBE.com.
and be more happypreneur is the raison d'etre that's going on right at the core of everything. If you'd like to connect with Tony Robinson OBE on LinkedIn, here is the next opportunity to show us your QR code, please. And there's another of your eclectic, lovely hats there that you're sporting. You've also got your you've written 9 books and 2 audio books. But the 2 you were kind enough to send me were the Happipreneur, which is your that's your main calling card. I think it's a wonderful thing. It is yours. The Happipreneur is. I think if people Google that, they'll come across you in any case anyway. And then, as I've mentioned already, the 2020 Visionaries, which is dead celebrity interviews.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And anywhere else we can find out about you on the old World Wide Web?
Well, I think if you just put Tony Robinson OBE into, you will find it goes to me, Tony Robinson OBE, rather than the famous Sir Tony Robinson. And, that'll get you to the YouTube channel. The authors were, obviously, the majority of my books are fiction and satire and things, not business. So that Tony Robinson OBE will get you to all the places. So.
Lovely. As this has been your moment in the sunshine in the Good Listening To show, Stories of Distinction and Genius, Tony Robinson OBE, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I'd like to ask you a question. I'd like to ask you 2 questions, actually, but it might only be time for one, and that would be, how did Stan Laurel inspire your comedy and all this brilliant stuff that you've done over the last 5 years, and really your stage persona, really, I would say, because obviously he was a brilliant writer and director and everything as well. So just tell me, what Stan Laurel does for you.
That's such a beautiful question. I was 7 years old and living in Uganda, between my being 2.5 and 10. But when I was 7, a black and white TV set hummed into action. On walked Stan Laurel, and my life was transformed. It was I think it was County Hospital was the first Stan Laurel film I ever saw. And he just set the agenda for my future life of the idea of be kind, be hapless, be innocent, be warm, be hilarious. In what I noticed in him, he just had the funniest bones that I still go back to as my serious happy place. I even today, I re-uploaded to a group that I've curated since the beginning of the pandemic called #LolVirus, spread a little happiness. Stan Laurel is the mascot. There was a colorized version of Way Out West, which I actually put in today. So almost on the daily, I'll think of Stan Laurel and go to a happy place of his quality, and him, and then Michael Palin in the Monty Python world as my comedy world evolved. So yes, thank you for that question. He's just my factory default setting is Stan Laurel. He reminds me to keep it warm, to keep it funny, keep it kind, and to keep it slightly hapless as well. I quite like the sort of, like the dyspraxia. I quite like the sort of haplessness, and I love being silly. Never lose your sense of humor, because that's what's going to pull us through. That's a lovely question. Thank you.
And presumably even in leadership training, which you do as well, don't you? Presumably one of the, well, you tell me, how do you actually transfer these skills and persona that you've actually developed and been inspired by people like Stan Laurel? How do you actually transfer that into helping others to be leaders, or do stand-up, or do improvisation, or act, because you're an actor, aren't you? So I mean, how do you actually, use these kind of things that you've learned to help others?
It's the notion of being truly able to be present with all that you bring. There's one of my favorite quotes about facilitation, which is the best resource a good facilitator can bring into the room is themselves. If you're calm, breathing, and are able to be present, I then bring a motivational comedian quality to it, where you're outside looking in, you're able to be maverick in a good way, but also just be monumentally present. And I've always got the lens of cutting through the noise to use humor in a way that's going to connect people, but also being able to laugh at yourself is a really important thing and not take yourself too seriously. So motivational comedian captures it all for me. And in fact, that moniker was given to me rather spontaneously during the pandemic. You've got me on a bit of an open road of telling you the story of this, but a friend who came to the Rob Brydon show, actually 3 days ago, we bumped into each other during the pandemic on a bike ride. He had his son in the background. This is a lovely chap called Ben, who's an ex-BBC producer, and we're going to go on an epic bike ride together next June, I think. But anyway, my bike is my freedom. We stood there. His son was in the background. His son used to be yay high, and then suddenly we're like, my son was 6'4" and huge. And I did that classic dad thing of, oh, you've grown, or whatever happened. But anyway, kids hate that, but you can't think of anything else to say at that moment. Anyway, Ben and I started to exchange pleasantries of surviving the zombie apocalypse. And then just as they're about to ride off, the son then re-engaged, thinking, oh, come on, Dad, we're supposed to go on a bike ride. And he said, who's that? And then Ben said, oh, that's Chris Grimes. And then Ben's son, Dan, said, well, what does he do then? And I thought, easy, I'm still in earshot. And then Ben said, oh, he's a motivational comedian. And then off they cycled. I stood there in the clearing, which it is, and I thought, boom, I'll have that. And ever since that, motivational comedian channels Stan Laurel, but it channels who and what I can bring. And in terms of personal branding is another thing that we all talk about in terms of communication skills. There's something really rich at play called an operator word, where you say something that makes people go, wait, what? So if I say to people, I'm a motivational comedian, you'll notice that's a bit hooky, as in, why, what? I don't know of anybody else that calls themselves a motivational comedian, but it defines what I can bring. And thank you for those questions. Did that answer?
It's similar to inventing happypreneurship as a way of actually describing a philosophy, but you've made an incredibly important point that is useful for anybody listening that's thinking of starting a business or running a business in the first 3 years, is that what you don't need is a guru to help you. What you need is a facilitator. You need somebody to give you the connections. You need somebody that gives you the know-who as much as the know-how kind of thing. And there is a guy called Dr. Ernesto Ciroli that calls it enterprise facilitation. So although my Wikipedia thing says I'm a business advisor, I've never, ever been a business advisor. I would never want to be a business advisor. I know some brilliant business advisors, and we've got loads of those in Yorkshire in business. But I do believe in this engagement that you're talking about, if you like, as a facilitator, almost on the outside looking in and actually bringing things together. I think that's fantastic.
And in the coaching sphere, that's about the notion of bearing witness. What I love is being outside looking in, as you do as the Happypreneur, and bearing witness to some of the chaos you see in front of you, and then helping with all things clarity, direction, strategy, and purpose by having a lens on, like you've described, over 30 years of supporting small businesses. I've got 25 plus years of multi-organizational experience.
Yeah,
that's what I love to bring to bear too.
Great. Love it. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And back to you. It's about you. Thank you. There were very generous questions. Is there anything else you'd like to say about what you'd like to leave our audience with?
No, I've enjoyed it greatly. And as I say, I really enjoyed the Rob Brydon thing as well. So that was an extra bonus because, with me not watching television at all, apart from sport live, it's got to be live as well. I don't do any catch-ups at all. Then that means that I didn't know anything about him. But the man's brilliant, isn't he?
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant.
Fused with showbiz anecdotes and brilliance. And of course, as you said, back in day, we were connected in the same comedy improvisation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's great. And you work together and it's just wonderful. And he clearly respected you and everything you do as well. No, it was a magical evening. Well done.
So it's available on YouTube. So the goodlistening2show.com is the main mothership website, but the Rob Brydon show is on YouTube because it was live streamed like this was, but this was in a live theatre venue. So very, very excitingly, I'm on the open road of also through various series strands turning it into a live theatre show, what we're doing. Today, we've been doing a founder story, but also a sort of story of distinction and genius. It's all connected in the mothership of the Good Listening To show. There's a good book series strand, there's a founder story strand, but the structure allows me to take a helicopter landing as to what's most helpful, a bit like facilitating. How can I help you? How can I be of service to you in helping you amplify what it is you're up to? And Tony Robinson, thank you so much. You are a dream collaborator, and I can't wait to meet you in person, but also I look forward to future collaborations with you as well.
Yeah, I look forward to meeting you too. Great. Thank you very much. It's been an honor.
Lovely. And so Legacy Life Reflections, just finally to mention, is the most exciting. It's still part of the framework, but Legacy Life Reflections is to record your story or the story of somebody near, dear, or close to you for posterity, lest we forget before it's too late, with no morbid intention, but to one of your own quotes, Tony Robinson, you know, the gist of which is, ain't none of us getting out of here alive. There's no morbid intention. And in fact, my father, Colin Grimes, that he's become a bit of a willing guinea pig stroke mascot for it. There's a lovely picture of my dad on the legacylifereflections.com website saying cheers to a good life, in effect. He very sadly died last August, but I recorded him in the halcyon days of his 80s about 5 years ago before he slipped into a crater of declining health. So yes, have a look at that too. But most importantly now, back to Tony Robinson. You've been listening to me, Chris Grimes, but that is Tony Robinson, the Happipreneur, OBE. Anything else you'd like to say, Tony?
Just thank you very much. I've loved it. Thank you.
And good night. Thank you very much. Thank you, Courtney.